Hello, welcome to Chef Richard's Kitchen. I'm Chef Richard Miller. Easter is just around the corner, and I've been doing some recipes on some of the things that normally we do around Easter time. You know, an Easter bread, I've done a leg of lamb, things like this. Well, today we're going to do hard-boiled eggs, and we're going to make deviled eggs because that's one of the things that a lot of people do around Easter time. Now, the first thing and the first question that everybody asks is, how's the best way to boil them? Well, we know how the best way is, put them in boiling water. But the real trick is, how do you get the shells off them without destroying the egg? And I've done a separate video on that, how to hard boil an egg and get the shell off. And it's under the shorts. And if you want to go look at that, that's great. You know, that tells you pretty much how to do it, but I'm going to go over it again here. And I had all sorts of trouble until I ran into an article by Reed Drummond, the pioneer woman, who said, when you do that, you know, boil them, put them in boiling water, put them in for 13 minutes, bring them out, and put them in an ice bath for 2 to 3 minutes there. I tried it, and you know what? It's worked every time. So that's what we're going to do today. Another thing that I've kind of learned to do is, when you're getting ready to put your eggs in, let them sit out for a little bit. If they're not quite as cold, the shells don't get nearly the heat cracking. You know, so I've got the water boiling here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the eggs in. Well, there's one of them heat cracked already. Okay, they're in here. I'm going to go ahead and grab another one because I just had 6 and we're going to need 6 for the recipe. I think that was my last white egg, so I'll go ahead and grab a brown egg. But anyway, I'm going to put that in there, and I'm going to set the timer for 13 minutes. And when they're done, I'll be right back. We'll see you then. All right, it's been 13 minutes. So I went ahead and I prepared an ice bath here. And we're right about 33 degrees, so we're fine. So what we're going to do now is, I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat off. And I'm going to take our eggs and I'm going to put them in the water bath. There. Remember at the beginning, I did crack one in there. Well, I did find another white egg in there. So I went ahead and I put it in and cooked it. Now we're going to let this rest in the ice bath for about 2 to 3 minutes. And when it comes out, they'll be ready to peel. So once again, I'm not going to stand here and blab for 2 or 3 minutes. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut the tape and I'll be back. See you then. All right, I've had the eggs in the water bath for probably 4 to 5 minutes. So let's go ahead and bring these out. Just crack them open. And you can see how easily they come out of the shell. There's one. Two. all of them came out. No splits, no rips, no tears. So we know that's a good way to get them out. 13 minutes in already boiling water. Take them out, put them in an ice bath for 2, 3. I probably was in 4 or 5, and they'll come out beautiful every time. So, all right, now let me go ahead and get things organized here. Give me a minute, and we'll go ahead and we'll cut these up, and we'll go ahead and make the yolk mixture. So, be right back. All right, now, since I last saw you, I went ahead and I put my induction plate up, and I went ahead and I took all these eggs and I rinsed them under cold water. And the reason I do that, and I do it every time, is simply because often little pieces of eggshell get caught on these. And the last thing I want is, one of my guests to start, pulling in there and start pulling part of an eggshell out of their teeth. Not good. So now let's go ahead and let's take and cut these in half lengthwise. Put the yolk in one bowl and the whites in another. All right, they're all cut. The yolks are out. Now let's go ahead and let's make our yolk mixture. All right, we'll start out with 6 yolks in there, cut in half. And now it's time for, probably about 1/3 of a cup of mayonnaise. And generally for deviled eggs, I often use Duke's. And by the way, I don't get a dime from Duke's or anybody else sponsoring this channel. But I find that it's a little tangier and it works better with the white vinegar that you put into the deviled eggs. So, all right, we want to put in about 1/8 of a teaspoon, 1/8 to 1/4 of salt. A teaspoon or teaspoon plus of white vinegar, a teaspoon of yellow mustard, and probably about 1/8 of a teaspoon of smoked paprika. I like the smoky flavor that it gives the eggs. All right, now here's a fork in the road. In this case, I'm just going to grab a fork and I'm going to mix these. There's only 6 eggs worth of yolk, so there isn't a whole lot. Now, if you were making, deviled eggs for, say, 100, then what I would probably recommend is you do this in a food processor. So, because I'm going to have to do this for a while, simply because when I pipe this on, and you can do it 2 ways. You can either take a spoon, put it in there, or it looks a little more professional when you take a piping bag and a piping tip and actually pipe it on there. But to do that, it has to be fairly smooth. So I'm going to spend a little time with this. Once again, there's no sense in me just sitting here blabbing, while you're trying to painfully put up with it. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the camera off here, and I'll be back when it's smooth. All right, the yolk mixture is nice and smooth now. And so before we put this back in the eggs, what's the first thing I tell you that you have to do before you ever serve it? That's right, taste it. It's got a very good tang to it. You can taste the mustard, you can taste the mayonnaise that's in there. It does have a little smoky flavor to it due to the smoked paprika. I might put just a little bit more in there. I am going to take and put a little pepper in there. I think that needed just a little bit. And I'm going to put just a little bit more of the smoked paprika. Much better. The smokiness comes through a little bit. The pepper gives it a little distinctive flavor. And between the vinegar and the mustard and the mayo, it's got a nice tangy flavor that deviled eggs, are known for. So I think it's good. Remember the test? If you were going to serve these to somebody who was going to determine your next raise, would you serve it to them? In this case, absolutely. So let's put the yolk mixture into our piping bag. I do this, roll it up, just simply because I don't want it pushing out the top. So, okay, just kind of even them out a little bit. Okay. One thing I do like about the piping tip is this is it has a little serrated edge in there, and it gives the eggs a much, much better look. So it actually looks like it's been piped in and not pushed in with a spoon. So anyway, let me wash up, and then we'll come back, we'll garnish and decorate them a little bit, and we'll put them on the serving platter. So be right back. All right, now we have our eggs. They look good. They have the ridges on there of a professional, one that's been piped. So now what are we going to do to garnish these? Well, there's a couple of things you can do. I'm going to do a couple of different ways. You can pretty much see what you like. right there is just taking and putting a couple of little chives across it. I just cut these in about an inch, between 3/4 and an inch long. Put them in there. We can also take and put just a little sprig of dill in these. Or we could just use some good old parsley. All right. Now, there's one last thing that I like to do with these, and it's the reason I didn't put them on the serving board quite yet, is I like to take and just dust a little bit of paprika, or the smoked, in this case, paprika. So, now you're ready to serve them. So, we'll go ahead and we'll set these on a serving platter. Now, the reason I'm using this is because there's a spot under here for a lid, and when I take these, to an occasion, I want to make sure there's a lid on them. Okay, and here we are. Here are deviled eggs. Now, one thing I like to do if I use multiple types of garnish on here, what else could you do? Oh, if you have some, bacon pieces that are reasonably good size, you could stick those in there. You can do about whatever you want if you want to take and put some chopped green onion on there. That works well too. Do whatever you want. Feel free to kind of experiment with them a little bit. But anyway, what I like to do is when I make these is instead of putting an entire row of chives and dill and mix them up a little bit. It does add a little bit of, what do we want to call it, sophistication to it, a little bit of artistry. And, your guests will probably, not think it's quite so mass produced that way. So anyway, here we are. We've gone ahead, we've made them, we've tasted our yolks. It came out delicious. We've garnished them, we've got them on the board, we're ready to take them. So feel free to try this recipe. If you like it, if you have any other ideas what would be good for garnish, for heaven's sakes, leave me a comment. I'm always glad to hear comments. In fact, we're looking at a microphone here. In fact, one of my viewers actually suggested that it might be better if I used the microphone. Well, you know what? There's a lot of intelligent people out there that know what they're doing. So I figured, well, let's go ahead and use it. So I actually do read my comments in my email. So feel free to send me any. Once again, thank you for joining me this episode. Take care. God bless. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Remember, cooking should always be fun, and take care. See you next episode.